Hello, guys, and welcome back to Crazy About Kickoff. This is episode 1 of a new series, which is called the Premier League Debrief, and we're joined today by Man United fan Harry. Today on the agenda will be the sacking of Rafa Benitez at Everton, the problems at Man United, Man City's 1-0 victory over Chelsea, and who we think is the best player outside of the traditional top six. So we'll start with Rafael Benitez being sacked by Everton, and surely it was doomed to fail from the start, wasn't it, John, really?
I don't think it was doomed to fail, to be honest. I think you look at I think he was set up to fail more than anything. I think you look at the managers they'd had in before, the players they'd brought in, there was clearly no direction with either one. So managers would come in, they'd be given a stupid amount of money to make stupid signings, and then when they didn't work out, the managers would leave and the players would be stuck there. And then you bring in Rafa Benitez, who's probably the best manager they've had in a long, long time. And you say to him, right, we've got 2 million to spend in the transfer window, but we've got expectations higher than any other manager we've had and we've given all the money to. And yet with that 2 million, he brings in Damari Gray, who's probably been their best player this year. He brings in Aaron Josh Townsend, who's been a great signing. And even in in the January period, he's brought in a new left back to replace Digne. He's brought in Nathan Patterson from Rangers. Like, I know people say that it was they're going to doom to fail because obviously he was a Liverpool manager. Liverpool fans still have a lot of affection for him, and he was already off on the back step. But like, I think that him getting sacked is probably the worst decision they could have made because they're not getting relegated. I don't think. I genuinely. I know they're sort of.
Above.
I know they're in that area, but like, if they're going to bring in what? Who are they going to bring in? Sam Allardyce for 2.0?
Well, according to The Athletic, they're going back to Martinez.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
We can get him.
This is what I mean. Like, Roberto Martinez has shown nothing with one of the the best Belgian side ever, one of the best national teams, and he's had them all in the golden period of form, age, everything. And every time he's failed to achieve what they wanted to achieve. He got the highest finish in World Cup history, fair enough. But in the Euros, they've been underwhelming. Even in that World Cup, I thought they were fairly underwhelming. And whenever it came up against a tough task, they were never up to it. So look, I think if anything, bring in Martinez, and they deserve everything that comes to them, the Everton board, because they've done Rafa Benitez a complete disservice, in my opinion.
It's just like one of them, and it's like the state. We talked already on the podcast about the state of the club, but like the one that gets me is you get rid of probably your best player. I'd argue in Lucas Digne, and because of an argument with a manager, and then you sack that manager. Like not even a week later, it just smacks of like no planning at all. Like if you're thinking of letting go of the manager who's having beef with your best player, you don't then let the best player go. And obviously, yet they've signed Michalenko, or he's got a replacement who looks like he's got potential, but he's obviously not Lucas Digne level, is he?
Just but to me, yeah.
Sorry, Harry, to interrupt. It just speaks volumes of the state of Everton Football Club right now, and obviously, like their aim is like probably the fans' aim is probably Champions League. It's probably not really realistic. Probably more like a realistic aim though should be like for a club as big as Everton should be Europa League football at least, if not pushing on knocking on the door for Champions League. But I think if they bring in Martinez back, it's got a backward step again. I think because the fans won't react very well to it. I don't think. And then you've got the likes of Wayne Rooney linked. He's doing obviously a fantastic job at Derby, but like, can he adapt from the Championship to the Premier League that quick? And if they do something like that, that could result in like a relegation battle. They have only won one of the last 11 games, so it's a squad who aren't exactly full of confidence anyway. And if you bring in a manager who's inexperienced, like your Rooney, like maybe Lampard, but I suppose Lampard has a little bit of Premier League experience. What would you say, John, if they appointed Lampard?
I think, look, I still think that the Everton squad is a really good squad. I think the point you made about the Digne thing's like the perfect example, though, of what should warn off some of these managers. the fact that they're so indecisive, but then also so ruthless with things. They spend the whole 6 months giving Rafa Benitez very little support in the transfer market, but loads of say in other areas of the club. They got rid of the head of the medical, the head of the scouting. They got rid of a lot of big players in sort of the behind-the-scenes work, all because Rafa Benitez wanted it. They got rid of Coutinho, who, when he was clearly wanting to leave, we were linked with him as a part of our squad option. And he's played for Barcelona, he's played for PSG, he's played for top teams. And then you're right, yeah. And then a week later, because of a result against Norwich, which granted was a poor result and it was a poor performance, they pulled the trigger on him. And now I bet whoever comes in is going, why have I just come in and we've just got rid of Luke Coutinho? Yeah. It doesn't make sense to me. And look, I'd want Lampard back in the Premier League, and he'd obviously, whoever he joins would then have a little bit of support from myself and probably a lot of Chelsea fans. But there's warning signs all over that club that it's not a place where if you've got a point to prove or you need your next job to go well, that it's somewhere you go.
Yeah, I think Graham Potter's already sort of come out, and it was sort of like a little bit of a veiled dig. I thought he said, "Why would I leave Brighton? I'm already at like a really well-run club." And the fact he said, like, "I'm at a well-run club," it's like, is that a hint? Like, I wouldn't accept the job, kind of thing. I think another interesting name that's been linked is Ole. What would you make of that, Harry? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer returning to the Everton.
Wow, I wouldn't be convinced by that. I think it made sense him joining United when he did, and giving him the full-time job obviously turned out to be a mistake in the long term. But that was because he has links with the club. He knows the academy. He understands the philosophy of Manchester United. I don't think you can say that about Everton, and I don't think he's proven that he's a good manager. I think the best bet for him is to go off and try and become the national manager in Norway. So, no, I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer should. I mean, I don't think Everton should approach him, and obviously he would take the job. Of course he would. It's a great opportunity for him, but no, I think that would be a mistake. I'd rather go for someone like Rooney or Lampard if I was Everton. But if I was Rooney, I would keep going with Derby. I think what he's doing right now with Derby is a great thing, and I think it'd be a really real shame if he left there in a position where you actually think he could do the impossible.
Yeah, it would be nice to see him complete that task. Obviously, I think, as I've said, Graham Potter should be Everton's target. Whether they can get him or not is a different question, but they should be throwing the kitchen sink to get Graham Potter.
I saw the other day
to turn around that club. Like, they're in need of such a dramatic overhaul with a limited budget. And the style of play that I think he brings is more distinguished than all the rest that we've really mentioned. When you think of Potter, there's literally a term, Potter ball. There's not Ole ball or Lampard ball. It's all like, Martinez ball. And like, none of them really have a distinguished type of play. Whereas Lampard's like got like a bit of a attacking reputation, but like, it's not like Tuchel ball or Klopp ball or Pep ball. Like, they've all got like systems which other clubs have tried to replicate. Whereas like the likes of Lampard and Ole don't really have that. Whereas Potter literally does. And I think Potter probably would steer clear because he's looking at the likes of Man United and the likes of maybe Liverpool when Klopp leaves, maybe City when Pep leaves. He's probably that good, to be fair, as well. I might come back to finger that a couple of years if Potter absolutely tanks and goes to one of them clubs and turns out to be absolutely rubbish. I'll probably get panned for that, but I think he could. Right, John, what did you want to say?
Yeah, I think the thing with Potter, you're spot on, really. I think it's not even just the style of football. I think we're looking at the style of football of Ole Lamps and Martinez. It's very much let's attack and sort of hope the defense works out for itself. And it's had very, very successful three managers at different points. But yeah, I think, look, Potter on paper is probably the perfect manager for them, right? He's got a good style. He's built up Brighton from a completely different philosophy from where he started. Right, you're under Chris Hughton, it's very defensive, and now you've got players like Dan Burn, Adam Webster playing some sort of like kind of almost sexy football, which is not, you don't associate like players of that ilk with that sort of football. And it's not even that; it's the stuff he's done off the pitch to improve himself as a coach. He's got a degree in terms of, he's gone on leadership courses with like officers in the military. He's got degrees on philosophy and leadership. Like he is built for a club like Everton, but it's almost a similar sort of situation that I feel like Brendan Rodgers was in when the Arsenal job was available, right? Where obviously you're going to a bigger club and the ceiling is higher for what you can achieve as a manager. But when you've got such a good thing going with the club you're at now and you're so loved and the players who are all on board with you want to do, does it make sense at any point to leave? I don't really think so. And especially think that you're looking at certain teams coming up now where you think Ragnick's only here for the 6 months. You think Klopp's got maybe 18 months left. How long's Pep going to be at City? Everyone knows that Chelsea turnover managers like quicker than a grill, burgers on a grill. Like those jobs become available, all of them probably in the next 2-3 years. And if you can keep going with Brighton, Graham Potter's in the pole position, not just as a good manager, but as a good British manager who can achieve a lot. So as much as he fits Everton on paper and they should do everything to get him, Graham Potter should do his absolute best to avoid it, really.
So, all right, I'll ask you to who. I'll go Harry first. Who, if they don't appoint Martinez, because obviously that's what the Athletic are reporting, so the Athletic normally get it spot on. So, but it's whether they can agree with the Belgian FA to let him go. He'll still be managing Belgium, I think, as part of the, which is, I've never really, has that really ever happened? It's sort of like just like what happens on here on like FIFA or Football Manager, isn't it? But go on, say they don't get Martinez, who would they get in your opinion, Harry?
I think they would go for Graham Potter, but as we've already established, I don't think that he would want to make that step. I think he's quite happy at Brighton, and I think he would rather go to a bigger club at a later date. So otherwise, I think Lampard is possibly the next best option. He's currently available. He did quite well at Chelsea. Obviously, John might disagree with that, but he had some good times, I think, and I think he showed that he's a positive manager and he plays a good style of football, and it'd be good to see both him and Gerrard in the Premier League. I think obviously it's the same situation for whoever comes in. It's a difficult club to come into, and it's a challenge for anyone who comes in with the owners they've got and the sort of the way they throw money left, right, and centre, but not necessarily smartly. So yeah, I think Lampard though for me. I think Potter is unrealistic, and Lampard's free and available. They could go and get him in for their next game of the weekend.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think who Everton want and who maybe Everton need are probably different options. Everton want a Graham Potter or a Lampard or a Rooney, someone who either has the pulling power or the like philosophy that is entertaining, is sort of flashy, is good to watch. But realistically, Everton need a manager that's going to keep them up this season, right? And you look at, I know he's been there before and kind of done a similar job, but like you need sort of almost the next Sam Allardyce to come in, like whoever you can get someone like that. But I think I'm kind of on board with what Harry said. I think if they don't get Martinez, I think they'll probably turn to Lampard. But I think who would be just as good a shout, even though it probably looks a bigger risk, is probably John Terry. He's done his coaching things. He's got his experience being an assistant at Villa. He had a big impact at Villa, not just in terms of what he brought as a coach, also in the dressing room. Obviously, he did that as a player. Apparently did that as a coach, and apparently how they set up defensively, which when you kind of look at the track record, kind of went to pot when Terry sort of left. And he's obviously eyeing up a managerial job, and I think Everton would be a good spot, because I think even if it doesn't go brilliantly, I think someone who's just got enough nous about them probably keeps them up. And then maybe you say, look, we'll give you a contract to the end of the season. We'll have an option to extend it for another year. If it doesn't work out, then you let him go and maybe he rejoins another coaching setup. If it does work out, then you kick on and you see what's what. But like, I think that's obviously out of the realms of possibility. That's just sort of how I would see it. But yeah, I think Lampard, if it's not Martinez, is probably the one they have their eye on really, and I think that's probably who they'd get.
I think Lampard's a big good appointment. I think they might go down the route of giving Duncan Ferguson an interim role or something, maybe for a bit, and see if he kicks on, he might get the permanent one. I think, or like give him it to the end of the season, and then sort of reassess their options, see who's available, kind of thing. But anyway, we'll move on, and we've talked about Ole in that little section. So, Harry, since United have replaced Ole and brought in Ralph Rangnick, me and John thought that was an utterly terrifying move for the rest of the Premier League. And it might well prove to be, when he moves into the back room. I think that was more of the fear, wasn't it, John? Really, that he moves into the back when he does move into the back room eventually. But it really isn't going well right now, is it?
It's not, no. But I mean, I think I would be more fearful from rival fans about what he does in the back room, because I think he needs to change the direction of the club, and until he does go there, whilst he's still down on the ground as a manager, I can't see anything really changing. This bizarre situation at the moment with Darren Fletcher. Is he meant to be our director of football, or is he meant to be our assistant manager? Because he's trying to do both at the moment, and it's really odd. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I've ever seen someone doing two, trying to be up in the hierarchy whilst also being down on the training ground. It's very strange. And then you've got, the disastrous situation with our majority of our players on massive wages, and you just can't. So selling them on, we've got a massive squad and we just can't sell anyone on because we've given them crazy wages. It's just a complete mess top to bottom, and the way that we're playing on the pitch is reflecting on that at the moment. There's a lack of squad morale, and I think it's evident on the performances on the pitch. And I think I don't know if you saw the interview Ronaldo did the other day, but I think that epitomised everything that's going on with our group of players. There's a complacency there, and there's a sort of, you get things too easily at United because you get big wages and you're not even necessarily playing. And there's too many egos for players that haven't achieved anything. So Ronaldo was spot on. And if everybody could just mirror him and sort of learn off him, then it'd be great. But until he gets that club captaincy, I can't see that happening. As long as Maguire's captain, there isn't going to be much of a change in terms of that. And so, yeah, I think the biggest thing we can hope for is a victory against Brentford, because the Villa game was just, frustrating. We've got to beat Brentford and then go on a run, but I don't know if I see that happening, to be honest.
No, apparently a lot of 11 players are unhappy.
17 now.
Yeah, and they're all underwhelmed. They thought Rangnick was going to be a better coach, apparently, as well. That's what I've seen from what I've been reading. The likes of Lingard, Dean Henderson, Van der Beek, and Eric Bailly all want to go, which is understandable because they don't really get a look into. Even though, obviously, De Gea has been in good form, but the rest of the team haven't really. So surely, the likes of Van der Beek and Bailly and Lingard should probably get a chance. Rashford's been woeful, hasn't he?
Yeah, Rashford's been shocking, and it was actually a relief to see that he was left out of the squad. It was because of an injury, I believe, but for the Villa game, I think Elanga proved that he's got a lot of what Rashford can do, and he's actually shows a little bit more potential, possibly. But yeah, Rashford's out sorts at the moment and needs to be as far away from the first team, in my opinion, as possible. I think there's other players that are getting opportunities, without really deserving it. I think Matic is clearly showing week after week that he's past it, yet Van der Beek can't get a kick of a ball. So for me, I think if I was Van der Beek, I'd be looking to get out ASAP and try and find a move somewhere else in the Premier League or abroad, even if it's on loan, because he's got to think about the World Cup. He's got to think about his own career at the moment. At the moment, he's just not getting game time. Same with Lingard, although it's a slightly different situation with Lingard because he's trying to run down his contract so he gets a free move in the summer. So he's essentially just being lazy. But if he was serious about his career, he'd be looking to go back to West Ham in January or Tottenham maybe and try and force his way into the England squad. But he seems quite happy to just sit on reserves at the moment.
Yeah, it seems like a very good option United at the moment, and long may it continue, I say, personally. But
well, don't know about that.
But so, John, we'll move on to your team and we'll analyse the 1-0 defeat to Manchester City. I mean, we've got to start with the goal. It was a fantastic goal by Kevin De Bruyne, and I'm on the side that Mendy wouldn't have saved it either. But what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think there's many keepers that save it, to be honest. I think if you look at De Bruyne's goals against Chelsea, they'd make a compilation that would be outstanding. He scored some absolute bangers.
That free kick and that disgusting kick, the game that won Liverpool the league, that free kick.
Exactly. And I think there was one when Conte was manager where he did something similar, but instead of on his right, he just twatted it with his left and put it in the top corner. Like, I'm gonna be honest. I think there's been a little bit, especially with like some Chelsea fans. I think there's been a bit of an over exaggeration on how doom and gloom it is, to be honest. Like, I think Tuchel had a plan. Like, you look at like the options we had at wing back, and it's literally Marcus Alonso, and then either Azpilicueta or Hudson-Odoi or Pulisic. So you either go for a guy who can defend but doesn't offer a lot going forward, or a guy who can offer stuff going forward but can't defend.
But leaves a big gap behind against Man City as well, who will exploit that gap to perfection.
Exactly, and against the team, literally, it's the hardest game probably of the season. You're not going thinking, Hudson-Odoi is going to have some loads of joy against Cancelo, are you? You're thinking Cancelo's going to move, he's going to play football, he's going to test you. So you need someone with a bit of experience there. And I think Tuchel's plan was similar to the plan he set up in the Champions League final, which was we'll absorb the pressure and then we'll hit them when they're out of shape and when they've committed bodies forward. And I think to some extent that worked quite well. I think our final third play in both games against City this year is what's let us down. I think both games, I think City had a lot of the ball. They moved it around our box, but I think on the whole we were solid. I think we've been better defensively in the two games against City this season than we were in the Champions League final. I think the only difference was we had every single one of our back five pull off a last-ditch tackle or block or something in that final, and I think there's obviously Lukaku didn't help himself. Like, he's had 3 games now, 2 against Spurs, one against City, where he's had the chance to put a stamp on it and say, look, I'm still your guy. And he said in this apology video that he wanted to do his apologising on the pitch. And so far, I've not seen any apologies from him. I've seen of him a lot apologising to his teammates.
Yeah.
But it's almost this thing again of like, there seems to be some sort of miscommunication between what Lukaku wants to do on the pitch and what Tuchel wants of him on the pitch, because he got a lot of service into him, and a lot of the time he was trying to play this one touch into Ziyech, into Pulisic, both of which were absolutely shambles, by the way. I think dropping Mount was probably the first mistake. I think taking them off when they did was keeping them on for so long was the second. But I think you could tell that Tuchel wanted Lukaku to hold up the ball, give us time for our midfield and our inside forwards to start making runs in, start penetrating City's defence. And there was just like none of it happened. And we still had chances to score where the pass wasn't right, or Lukaku had a great chance and just gave Edison an opportunity to save it. But yeah, I think we're in a position now, and we brought it on ourselves to some extent where we were thinking, can we get ourselves back in this title race? Now we're thinking, how do we stop ourselves getting drawn into a battle for top 4? And the battle for top 4 is sort of where I thought we'd be this season. And I thought if we could pick up a trophy, if we could show some progression to Tuchel, that'd be brilliant. And I think we've done all those things. But I think the biggest thing from the City game, regardless of the result or the performance, is the Lukaku situation. Because we spent £97.5 million on this geezer. So what point do you spend so much money on a player that you can't literally afford to get rid of him, and you have to make a decision of getting rid of someone else? And at the moment, it seems like the person who's winning that fight is Tuchel. But if we keep dropping and it keeps getting more precarious, and maybe we go out of the Champions League or we take another disappointing result against someone, the Chelsea board aren't known for the rationality on certain things. So I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen. I'm not saying Tuchel's going to be gone, because I don't think he will. But it's a precarious situation which needs to be dealt with, and it needs to be dealt with sooner rather than later, because it's not going to get better on its own.
Yeah. So Harry's got a question for you, John. Go on.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, you're talking about it a bit there, really, but with Lukaku, with the situation with Lukaku, do you think that after what he came out and said in that interview, the initial interview, do you think he can really come back from that and have a successful career at Chelsea? Can it ever be forgiven, really?
I'm again, look, this may not be a popular opinion amongst Chelsea fans or amongst football fans in general, but I don't think it's as big a deal as people are making it out to be. I think the timing of it when it got released compared to the timing of when it was actually done has a big impact on it. It's done at a time where he's coming back from injury. There's been questions asked of Lukaku seems to be fit but isn't playing, or he's getting 20 minutes here, he's getting 15 minutes here. And Tuchel at the time said that there's certain things we want to see. And I think in the interview, I think certain talking, the way he talked about Inter Milan, I think is precarious, but I don't think it's disastrous. I think he's showing that it was a club which he loved and he enjoyed playing for. But I think it is recoverable, and I think it needs to be recoverable, because you're looking at Lukaku as a world-class player. When you can get him playing, he's a world-class player. And he arguably, a world-class striker is it's what's synonymous with every Chelsea title-winning team. It's either been Drogba or it's been Diego Costa. That's pretty much the two. But we've always had someone like that, a man who's a bully, a man who's physical, a man who's ready for the battle, and a man who we can rely on. And I still think Lukaku can be that guy, but I think the other problem is he needs to sort himself out a little bit, because I think his ego's gotten him into a bit of trouble as well, because he obviously thinks that he's a £97 million striker. He's on fat money. We've brought him back, so we obviously know we've shown our hand a little bit to show it was a mistake letting him go in the first place. So it is recoverable, but it just needs to be dealt with sensibly, and I think it just needs a little bit of grown up conversation between the manager and the player, which in football isn't known to happen a lot because of the egos that get thrown about. But it's definitely a situation that can be recovered, and I think the best way to start doing that is to score goals and be part of a team that's winning. And so football fans, as soon as your team starts winning, they seem to forget everything else you've done. So I think that's the perfect way to do it, really.
Yeah. Okay, right. So we'll move on from the Chelsea game now. I don't think we're going to talk about any other games in as much detail, because there's no point. There wasn't really any standouts. The Liverpool game was, as you expect, a nice easy win over Brentford without Salah and Mane. But Wolves beating Southampton 3-1, quite a good result. But again, Southampton aren't that
the
good.
Ward-Prowse free kick, though, can we just say?
Okay, yeah.
I'm talking Ronaldo versus Portsmouth.
Every
now and again, one of them goes into the top corner. That I just before this, I watched a compilation of James Ward-Prowse's free kicks in the Premier League. It's 5 minutes long. There's about 10 of them. Every single one of them is beautiful. They're beautiful. Yeah. They're from every different areas, different positions, different. I'm telling you, he's probably, in terms of players we've seen a lot of in the Premier League, he's arguably the best direct free kick taker I've ever seen.
I'd argue, yeah. Especially, and also, as well, he's not just good at like direct free kicks. He's good at like the crossing free kicks as well. He's not just literally a score from set piece guy. He's also gets assists or puts the ball in the box and creates that mayhem. The set piece deliveries are unreal as well. Do you know what I mean? So like, yeah, probably is the best free kick taker we've seen for a long time in the Premier League, certainly.
If only he was as good of a player outside of taking free kicks. He is obviously a good player, but he's not anything as special, is he? But if he had that all-round game to go with those free kicks, he would be a guaranteed first teamer in England's squad.
I've seen this before in Bellingham or Ward-Prowse. Was like obviously Bellingham more, just because he scored a nice free kick and is quite good at delivery.
That's an interesting one, actually. That's an interesting one.
But come on, like you can have him in there. You can have him in there just for the delivery, and you've got
I think you put him in the squad just for the delivery.
Yeah, but I think Trent's delivery is probably better. Personally, I'd say. So
that's one. That's if Trent gets in the England squad with Southgate there anyway.
We're not going to talk about the England squad because
that's a whole other debate.
That is a whole other debate.
We'll have that talk another time about the England squad, so we'll move on. And speaking of, actually, that's kind of brought us into the next topic quite well. Ward-Prowse, because he was on my list for who is the best player outside of like the traditional top six. So I'm not having anyone from Liverpool, United, Chelsea, City, Tottenham, or Arsenal. So you can have Leicester. You can have, we'll have them in there for the traditional sake of it. But you can have anyone from like Leicester, Wolves, Everton, say, all them are still not traditional top six. I would say maybe Everton actually would be over Tottenham, but we'll go with Tottenham in this one because they've got the likes of Son and Kane who are clearly, and Lloris and that who are like clearly world class players. So these players aren't world class maybe, but they're on the edge or they're just like elite or very, very good. For me, there's a couple of names, but for me, I think Rafinha is number one. Absolutely unbelievable. Another unbelievable performance on the weekend.
What, the performance where Jack Harrison got a hat trick? That unbelievable.
Well, Rafinha was like the driver. No, but Rafinha was the driver.
I know,
And speaking of the West Ham Leeds game, Jared Bowen on as well, obviously, has really stepped up his level. And a lot of Liverpool fans in the summer were kind of against the signing of Bowen. And while I would rather have Rafinha, obviously, I can see where the shout sort of comes from. And his underlying numbers are up there as well, like with the kind of Liverpool always look for like certain numbers, like the scalable as the term goes, where like they might not be like the levels that Salah and Mane are putting up, but they're the kind of levels they were putting up before they got signed, if you get me. Like the certain like metrics the club apparently use for their like attacking signings, and if they're within the range of a certain amount for each of these stats, they're on the list basically. Apparently, another one who's a winger, Saint-Maximin, Zaha, as well. What do you think about them names?
I think they're all good players. I think ASM is a terrific player. I think
as well, if he moved to a bigger club, he'd be even better. He's in a shit Newcastle team.
That's true. But I also think that has its advantages, right? Similar to you're looking at like sort of Grealish at Villa, the fact that because you are almost so much better, you almost get more license to like not only do things, but also when you lose the ball, people care a bit less. Like it's not as big a deal. But I think the player that we're missing out on here, and I think you talked about his teammate, I'm thinking it's got to be Declan Rice.
I did actually have him on my list, but I went for, because I was talking about Rafinha, I went for Bowen. But yeah, Declan Rice is definitely going to shout. He's much in. We talked about him. He got in our team of the season in our first YouTube episode, didn't he? If you haven't seen that, go back and watch it. I'd say and see who's in our team of the season so far. But you got the likes of Jose Sarr as well. I think if you're going to go goalkeepers, it's him or Martinez maybe, who are the best out of the top, the ones who are in the top six. I'm going to throw in. Yeah, but I think he's dropped off a bit this year. I don't think he's been anywhere near as good as he usually is.
I never really liked Kasper Schmeichel, to be honest.
Leicester's defence hasn't been either, so it's one of them. And it's like, look at Alisson last year when Liverpool had a bog standard defence. You know what I mean? I think one name I'm going to throw out, and I'm not sure if you'll agree. Harry, this man probably gives, actually maybe John as well. He scored quite a couple against Chelsea as well. But Harry, this man will give you and David De Gea some nightmares probably still to this day. And I'm talking about them. And he might actually, to be fair, he gave you nightmares the other night. Felipe Coutinho.
Yeah, he's a special talent, isn't he? But he's only just come back to the Premier League, so I don't know if
I'm not sure to call him a talent. He's 29, isn't he? I think that's maybe a bit.
He's a Brazilian Lingard. You still think he's a youth prospect?
Isn't he? Yeah. Okay. He's not.
I still remember Coutinho in his Inter Milan days, mate. When you signed him on FIFA and he went to like a sixth player. Yeah. And then I was buzzing when we signed him, but he was good. But his sales sort of kicked us on, really, didn't it? So, but a lot of Liverpool fans saying he'd take him back. I'm not. I'm a bit like that myself, because it's like
you would though, wouldn't you? Just on the basis of how good a player he is. It's like if someone's like when people go like, yeah, but you take Riyad Mahrez, and it's like, well, of course I'd take Riyad Mahrez. It's not that I'm not going to say no to having just Riyad Mahrez dropped in a squad, but there's a bit more to it than that. But no, Coutinho's a really good shout. I mean, he has just come back. I think he showed that he's still got at least a little bit of summer. When he dazzled the other night. I think
enjoying this too much.
Just a little bit. But I think a player who even this season is still putting up good numbers, but maybe the man who kept the football fairy tale going, Jamie Vardy. In terms of consistency, quality, the man has kept going and done insane things since pretty much his second season in the Premier League.
Certainly probably not even one of the best outside top six. He's probably one of the best players in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I completely didn't even think of him because he's that good. You know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean?
Similar with Declan Rice, though, isn't it? Because I think you'd argue that probably both of them in the last few years have been, probably a couple of the best players in the Premier League. I think another player for me that probably isn't quite there, like probably not the best player outside the top six, but Ndidi and Tielemans, both of them, to be honest, but particularly Ndidi, I think he's I'd take him at heartbeat at United, so he's a good player as well.
Certainly.
Yeah, I think the best way to look at when you're having a conversation about players outside the top six, right? You pick players who, if your club signed them, how happy would you be? And you think about all the players we mentioned. I think, apart from Mufazar, because I think he's a bit of a fanny, I think that all of those players, if Chelsea signed Rafinha, Jarrell Bowen, and Didi, Rice, Tielemans, any of them, I'd be buzzing. Mikel Antonio as well. I think West Ham and Leicester clearly have a good pool of players, but even we talked about them before. Everton, Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, both really, really good players. And I think
personally, and it's not even a Liverpool bias, I don't personally rate Richarlison. I just don't see what people see, and it's not even because he's a dirty player. I just don't see what people see in him.
The reason I like Richarlison so much is because he has that threatening thing of he in a better team he plays as like a winger, but because he's quite tall and he's quite physical, he'd be an absolute nightmare. Because if you had, obviously it's never happening, but picture, right, Trent putting balls to the back stick and Richarlison just abusing right backs all day, every day. It's something that would would really work really well. Obviously, it's not happening, but they're the sort of football dreams that I have these days of magic. But
yeah, I mean, if I was an England fan as well, right, I would have dreams of Trent Alexander-Arnold crossing for Harry Kane's big head,
or Calvert-Lewin, or both 4-4-2.
I just don't see how he's never clocked. I know he doesn't maybe rate Trent defensively, which is a joke, by the way, but we're not going to discuss that. But you just look at it like Bink right to his head, and you're getting back. Get at least a goal, at least one goal out of a tournament.
Have we got any other shouts for? Maybe I think we can. I think your best player outside the top six is probably coming from Leicester or West Ham, or maybe it's Rafinha. But have we got any other shouts that are maybe a bit under the radar?
Ooh.
John McGinn.
I was going to say John McGinn, actually. I almost forgot about that.
I'm going to put a mad shout out there and go with Mbeumo, whatever he's called. I just really like him.
Over Ivan Toney?
I like Mbeumo better, I think, yeah. I mean, I'd love Toney at Liverpool as a backup.
I've just thought of another one. I don't think you could go for him in terms of he's not been in the Premier League that long, but Dennis has had a great season for Watford. He looks like a real player. I think in a better team he'd be scoring. He'd be scoring a lot of goals because he's been scoring quite a lot anyway, and he's playing in a struggling Watford side. So
very true, very true.
Nice as a baller, to be fair.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone. I just sort of discounting the whole Norwich team, which is probably fair enough.
Yeah, definitely.
Brandon Williams. I mean,
did
you not see his cross the other night?
The worst of the lot, surely.
To be fair, his little pass into Adam Idah was quite good. But,
yeah, it was nice.
Thank you.
And his reverse slide tackle in a few weeks ago was also pretty sensational. But
he has his moments.
Southampton goal.
But I know he's not. He's just on a bit of a bit of a patch in at the minute, like
Salisu.
Yes.
Maybe. I think it's almost a conversation that requires almost a best 11 rather than a best one, because there's so many pros and cons with different positions and different players that how
can you compare a goalie to a striker? So
how do you compare Rafinha to Declan Rice on who's a better player, or how do you compare ASM to any of them? They're just all so different. Look at Wolves, Ruben Neves. Jalmatin, both of them would.
Harry's going to get flashbacks if you mention his name, lads. Jalmatin.
Well, yeah, but again, Neves is when we're talking about players that you would happily have at your club. I would take Ruben Neves. In our midfield right now, hands down. Yeah, no question.
Yeah. United are in an interesting position. They've got to recruit sensibly, I think, in the next window, because they've spent all that dough on players who. Maybe like the likes of Sancho. I know we at that one game, was it against Chelsea, where he scored, and he scored in the Champions League in the midweek. But he's been very maybe it's just he's been harshly treated, but he's been very underwhelming. I think Varane even. I know it didn't cost how much, did he? I don't think Varane, but I think Varane's even been underwhelming. For the reputation he's had. He got put on his arse, didn't he? Was it by Coutinho the other day, or was it? I can't remember. He got put on his arse the other day, or the week before, or whatever. But it was funny to watch, But and then obviously
I'm gonna have to disagree with that. But
the most baffling one,
he was just having a rest. He was just sitting down,
just chilling, chilling on the floor,
missing Sergio Ramos and Thibaut Courtois, probably.
Yeah, probably dreaming a bit back in Madrid. Yeah, I think Ronaldo probably does as well, because that baffled me though. He's had so much of that season. I think I know Ronaldo saved you a couple of times in some games, but I think he had a defensive mid in there instead of Ronaldo.
Wow.
Would you swap right now? Would you swap Ronaldo for Declan Rice?
I mean, yeah, I think, like you're saying, I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, it's not an easy one to answer that, but
that is heavy.
That's how much we need a midfield, though, because you can't win games without a holding midfielder, and we don't have.
You're not going to win a league title or a Champions League with McFred, are you? Let's be honest.
We're not going to achieve anything. And when Matic comes in, he's the only one that's actually a specialist, to be honest. He's the only one that he's too slow. So he can't play full. You can play him for 60 minutes and he'll do probably a much better job than Matic, than McFred. But
I've got a quick one for you, a quick hypothetical, Harry.
Yeah.
Would you take Jorginho?
Would I take Jorginho?
I mean, he finished third.
No strings attached.
Well, I don't know. I feel like, would you take Jorginho, but we get Marcus Rashford?
Oh,
Rashford going, I wouldn't be. Rashford leaving wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but going to a rival club, and then if he did well with you, I think, I don't know if I could.
I think him and Mason Mount would be a bit. Get Lukaku playing a little bit.
I do like Jorginho, but I'm not his biggest fan, to be honest. And he's not the player that we need. Like, I think he's a very good player, but I don't think he's a defensive midfield specialist. I think that's more like Kante. So we've got players like Pogba, Van de Beek, Bruno Fernandes that can play slightly higher up the pitch. Even I think McTominay, he's much better when you get him on the edge of the box because he can shoot and he can actually. He's quite a dangerous player. I think he's got quite a lot of power. So further up the pitch, we've got no problems other than a lack of wingers. But yeah, we just need a defensive midfield specialist. So I'm gonna have to say no to that.
I feel like this is why we're not in charge of our respective clubs, Harry, because I'd be throwing crazy deals around like that, and it'd end up going to pot. But
career mode, isn't it? Career mode swap deals.
Yeah, little option to buy or something as well for something.
Yeah.
We'll end on a positive note, and it is the fact that Brentford are looking at Christian Eriksen. Obviously, we all know what happened to Eriksen in the Euros and that, and it's just really nice to hopefully see him. And it's like the return of the entertainers to the Premier League, isn't he? Like the likes of Coutinho, Eriksen, absolute ballers.
We just need to get Hazard back, and it'd be almost like a throwback, wouldn't it?
Well, talking about that, it's just reminded me of Nani went to a club in Serie A the other day, and he got an assist like after 30 seconds after coming on, I think.
Yeah.
It's those types of players that sort of we don't really see anymore too much.
Yeah, but especially like the ones of like Coutinho's ilk, like and Eriksen's ilk, really, the like centre attack and mid too. Like, it's like Bruno, he's an attacker mid, but I think like he sort of ends up in the more like in the box half time, and then he's also his numbers are like, and you're gonna be like, oh, but like his numbers are slightly inflated by penalties and stuff in his first season anyway. Maybe not so much this season, but like, you know, like Jorginho's goal scoring numbers are inflated by penalties, obviously, because
he's our top goal scorer in the Premier League this year, man.
Yeah, how many of them are penalties? Probably all of them.
Every single one. You got to score them, haven't you?
Also, not quite sure how you've managed to bring Bruno Fernandes into a conversation about Coutinho and Eriksen.
I know it's a different caliber of player, Bruno, isn't he? Really?
Yeah, I mean, we've got Bruno's here, Coutinho,
of course he is.
Eriksen.
Of course he is. This isn't even a dig at his dodgy heart, but Bruno is a lot better player.
Oh, you mean now? I thought you meant like back in the. I was gonna say that's fucking close. That between like a Coutinho.
No. Prime Bruno in the Prem for United is better than prime Coutinho or prime Eriksen.
You think?
Yeah.
I'd agree. I mean, it's a lot closer. It's a lot closer between Bruno and Eric, particularly Bruno and Coutinho, actually. But if we're talking right now, I mean,
show me their best two Premier League seasons in terms of goals and assists, and stack them up against.
But it's not all
Don't
about
come
goals. Close. It's not all about goals and assists.
It is all about goals. That's how you win football matches.
Yeah, and I would say
it's like me going like it's like me or anyone else being like, oh, Hazard's better than Salah, because it's not all about goals. It's about whatever. It's just not true, is it? You've just got to accept the facts of the situation.
No, but I think like I don't know. I think Coutinho could do things that Bruno can't, and obviously Bruno do things Coutinho couldn't. But I just think like some of the performances Coutinho pulled out in big games.
I know what you mean.
But Bruno, like, look at that. Like, I know, and again, Harry said to me, but like the Europa League one where he just absolutely skims your team and chips the guy. Like, could Bruno do that? Very much doubt it. That's all I'm saying. And like,
I agree with what you're saying.
Well, the amount of time he's absolutely victimised Chelsea as well.
Who?
Like Coutinho. Oh my God, he's on strings at the bridge a couple of times. Like,
yeah, this is the same argument I'd have about Hazard, right? He done things that no one else could ever do, and it's not even like it's like people talk about people's amazing goals, and I'm just there like, Hazard's done that twice against your club. Never mind. Hazard's
obviously got amazing goals, but I think like the debate for that one, it's like Salah's got the goals, Salah's got the he's also scored like you say. Then Hazard's the big like against the big clubs, so like the big game record was kind of like Hazard's good in big games, but I'd argue Salah's better. And the numbers, I've seen something in the past. The numbers actually back it up. I mean, you think only it's like maybe Aguero, maybe who has better big game numbers in the modern era than Salah in the Prem.
Jamie Vardy's got some good big game numbers. Talking about back to our previous conversation.
Yeah.
Now we veered off.
Yeah, we veered off, Benny, but we'll go back to that. Vardy, your opinion for me. Go on, John, who for you, and then we'll let Harry do his. I think Vardy, your opinion for me. I can't decide.
I think right now, at this very second, I'd say Declan Rice.
I'd have to agree. I think he's actually looked this season. I watched West Ham's last few games, and I just think he's controlled that midfield, but he's also bringing an attacking element to his game as well. Like, he looks good going forwards as well, which we don't think we've seen previously. So he just looks like an all-round midfielder now. And I think he's getting to that place where you think in a couple of years' time he'll be world class.
I'd argue he is now.
Well, you could argue that,
potentially.
Yeah. I'd argue he is now. Right. Anyway, we'll end it there. Thanks for watching, guys. And if you like it, obviously subscribe to the channel. Leave us a comment if you disagree with anything we said, or if you agree. And give the video a like. It just helps boost us and stuff. Give it a share if you want as well. We've been Crazy About Kickoff, and we'll see you next time. Follow us on Twitter at crazy_kickoff. Go on, John.
Oh, and Instagram at Crazy Kickoff.